World Wellness Center that was conceived in the early 80s, and Dr. Emil Faithe, and I believe it's your wife, right? Susan Faithe, is that correct?
Right, Susan. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So you guys have been in the industry of getting people well for a long time, over 25 years, and you graduated from pharmaceuticals, i.e. drugs and surgery, into actually doing what people need to get well. So we're going to talk about that today. I followed that journey myself. I struggled with Lyme's disease and PTSD and other issues, and I went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and their antidepressants and all these things they wanted to give me. And I finally got my health back through doctors just like you, Dr. Faithe. So I'm glad you could join us today, and welcome to the call.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Matt. I look forward to sharing some time with you.
Yes. So you were in the industry with the regular medical industry. What was the impetus that really made you have a change of heart that brought you into the work that you do today? Because it's intuitive and it's also holistic.
Well, I always knew, Matt, that I was different. I just didn't know what that was till about 35 years ago. I did not see the world and the things in it in the same way that everybody else did. And I knew there was something going on there. So when I graduated from pharmacy school, I knew it was going to be a different adventure, and it has been. But the one fact that I remember was working in a retail pharmacy. This was about 30 years ago. And I was behind the counter, and a young gal, handed me about 8 prescriptions. Half of those to treat the side effects of the first 6 she's already taking. So that was like the wake-up call, like, wait a minute, these people aren't getting better, they're spending money, they're taking toxic medications, what's going on here? So that led me to explore natural medicines, and the rest really, as they say, is history. It just went from there, and as a pharmacist, I ended up opening up a chain of health food stores in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And everybody was, excited to see there was a pharmacist working behind the counter of a natural supplement store. So that parlayed itself into a private practice, and 35 years later, here I am. So
that's awesome. Yeah, when you go into health food stores, usually you go into the big box ones and you get a guy that knows less about it than you do, and they want to sell you the highest margin products. I know because I owned a nutrition franchise store, so I've experienced both sides of that.
Right.
So it's very interesting. Now, with the intuitive side, is that your wife actually does that sort of like a medical intuitive? Is that what it is?
Actually, I'm the medical medium, and she's also an intuitive. She does the life path readings. We both have the gift, but she does hers in the work of turning people's emotional, energetic, and their whole personal life, getting into that. I'm more tuning into the body. I've had the training in the medical field, and hence I use my gift to tune in to see what's going on inside your body and what's causing the symptoms you're feeling. Physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is, I get to the bottom of it.
That's great. So instead of the 15-minute visit where you basically give them a prescription and send them on their way, you look at the person as a whole. And I've experienced that. So medical intuitive, when I went to a few medical intuitives, what's interesting is that you can see how disease sort of begins in the psyche. Is that correct? And then it kind of comes through the body. Is that what you've noticed?
Every physical ailment has an emotional component where the beginning starts. Some of it has to do with past life issues, some of it with current life issues like the PTSD issues. We all have had PTSD as a child. I believe childhood should be illegal. There's PTSD all over. Everyone's had it. So it's just about identifying those triggers, finding out what kind of physical changes have been started, and then getting to the root cause and reversing those and managing those using natural medicines, high potency, proper nutrition, and energy and emotional clearing work. And we do a combination of those things in our practice.
Okay. So let's say I came to you and I was a new client, and it's a first experience I have, and I say, I've been so tired. I don't have any energy. How do I get my energy back? What is the first step? What is the first step towards discovering what's going on?
Number one, nutritional deficiencies, Matt. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that your liver is having some issues processing and detoxifying. A clogged liver, a energetically depleted liver is going to cause fatigue. In fact, those who complain of chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a big deal, the fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue thing, that all starts in the liver. That and the adrenal glands, those two glandular issues are at the root cause of the fatigue, the mood changes, you name it, anxiety, insomnia. It'll start in those two organs, also in the thyroid, but liver and adrenals are where I look first, and I usually find what I'm looking for.
I like that, because most conventional doctors would tell you that you need maybe even a benzodiazepine because you're having anxiety and you're depressed, but you go to the cause, and like Raymond Francis says in his book Never Be Sick, again, that deficiencies and toxicities are what create cellular malfunction in the body. So if you uncover those deficiencies, that's a very good place to start. Have you had... Go ahead.
I'd say absolutely. And the issue is, Matt, that most people are not utilizing, number one, they're not absorbing the nutrients they are getting. The food is not nutrient dense, we know this, as it used to be. It's less nutrient dense. We're not eating right as a society, and the things we are eating are not being metabolized, assimilated, and utilized by the body due to what we know as leaky gut syndrome. And leaky gut syndrome is really the hub of the wheel that drives these symptoms that draw people to people like myself, yourself, and other healers that are getting to the bottom of it.
Yes. And what do you think about probiotics in general? Do you like to give people more of the nutraceutical probiotics, or do you like to do a combination of fermented foods? How do you address a lot of the issues with the gut where the immune system seems to begin the process?
Well, it is always about the gut, like you say, Matt. That's where it all starts. So I start with the nutraceuticals. I do encourage, organic, low-fat yogurt, of course, the cultured foods when you can. But for me, for most people, that is simply not enough. It's a nice add-on, but we need, in many cases, the high-potency, broad-spectrum probiotic blends to really start getting the gut to work better and calming down that immune system, which is on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, have you done any work in the research with what these telomeres and how they talk about like the cytokines and how they can affect this lengthening and shortening? Have you had any research into that that's been fruitful for you?
And not extensive research, but I find it fascinating, actually. In fact, the movie The Age of Adeline, did you see the movie? It talks about telomeres. It's actually a fictional story, but it's not so fictional. They talk about telomeres and how that story unfolded. But yeah, it is fascinating work about the telomeres. I've not investigated it as well as I'd like to, but it is an area that is growing right now. And unfortunately, there are some people out there who are purporting to have products that are supposed to improve the telomere length, etc. And I'm not buying into that whole thing. There's more to it than the telomeres.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I actually was reading my email today, and there's a famous doctor that had an email about telomeres, and it's all about telomeres, but I haven't found any products myself that I really would believe wholeheartedly can actually do that by themselves. I think it's a more comprehensive approach, like what you're doing, where you have to address everything.
All right. Well, as you say, this is a holistic approach, and I look at everything. When I sit with a client, I'm looking at their personal life, their energetic fields, their gut, every one of their organs, and looking to see what kind of a Candida overload they have, if they have a virus, if I'm detecting any of those latent infectious processes, which many of us have, which are often the root cause of autoimmune issues, which is a big deal. There's some real big deals out there. One of them is autoimmune, of course, and that oftentimes is caused by what I call the silent plague. There are a couple of them, but the biggest one for me is the overgrowth of the yeast we know as Candida. And that overgrowth of Candida that we call candidiasis, at the end of the day, it's what's responsible for that leaky gut syndrome we talked about. So really, it's Candida that's driving a lot of these physical and emotional symptoms that are plaguing the world. It's not just our culture, it's other cultures as well.
Yeah, you're telling the truth. I've seen kids as young as 4, 5, 6, and 8 years old that have the tongue, the white Candida tongue, and right. It's terrible. And so a lot of approaches for Candida exist out there, and some of them are really severe, dramatic, where they try to absolutely kill all of that Candida, and then there's some more holistic approaches to try to balance the flora. What is your stance on that issue?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and it's a very challenging solution. Here's how I see it. Number one, you cannot and should not kill off Candida. You never will kill it all off. What you want to do is get down to a normalized level. Candida is actually a beneficial organism, but because of our diet, the stress, our society, the toxins in our body, this opportunistic organism goes nuts and literally takes over your life. It is controlling your brain waves, your thought processes, everything. It's amazing what Candida does. So my approach really is to get rid of Candida, but to the lowest level that we can. But that will always mean that you must clear the heavy metal and other toxin loads first or simultaneously. Otherwise, you can be assured that Candida levels will rise once again, because that heavy metal load binds onto that Candida and it will never let go. You've got to get the heavy metal load down, and we're all loaded with toxins, many of us with mercury. If you have mercury fillings or even have them removed, you are mercury toxic. And we've got to clear the mercury or the Candida will come back again and again and again.
Yeah. So I've even heard that even the artificial sweeteners can throw the gut flora out of balance and let the Candida. So there's so many different ways you can disrupt that natural ecosystem in your body. What would you recommend for the average person who says, okay, I've got Candida, I definitely need to detox? What is a good product or group of products that can help with that heavy metal detox in a safe way?
Well, there's a lot of them out there, as you say. It's really more about the particular situation and the individual. The one I use in the office is called, and we use professional grade products from Pure Encapsulations, is called HM Chelate. It's a combination of minerals and herbs that actually do a great job of pulling out the heavy metals over time. It usually goes about 8 weeks of 3 times a day, 1 capsule 3 times a day, and most folks, they have them simultaneously on a Candida Purge kit, which is the 4-piece liquid kit that I use in the office, and we do both of those together, and within 8 weeks, usually 6 to 8 weeks, the individual is saying, wow, I have my memory back, I can focus, my mood is improved, all of a sudden I have more energy, and my gut isn't exploding out from morning to evening 3 different waistband sizes, because that's the kind of expansion that you'll see with Candida overgrowth from morning to evening in those individuals who have Candida overload.
Isn't that the truth, that Candida gut? You eat something and all of a sudden you have a Buddha belly. I've been there, and it's not a pretty sight, but that's exactly what happens. So
the whole beer belly thing, that's really nothing more than candidiasis, untreated, left untreated.
That makes sense. And you know, beer is actually very high glycemic, so it's like having sugar, sugar, sugar. And
it's feeding that Candida. They love that beer. They love all carbohydrates, even the great fruits. You know, a lot of these folks are fruit eaters, and I'm an advocate of eating healthy. Fruits are healthy, but they are sugar, healthy sugar. But I'll tell you what, notoriously, I'll find that big fruit eaters are going to have larger Candida loads.
Yeah, it does affect the body. So what kind of a diet do you think is the most well-rounded approach for managing Candida? What is your preference?
Generally speaking, there's dozens and dozens of diets on the web you can pick out. Some are very extreme, some are lenient. Here's what I think, Matt. Here's how I feel. Number one, focus on high-quality protein and eat protein frequently, i.e. every 3 to 4 hours. That'll keep the hypoglycemia, the low blood sugar crashes that are notorious with Candida, that'll help minimize those. Also, focusing on high-quality vegetables, the dark green leafy vegetables, not corn, not white potatoes, and not too much on carrots, which are very sweet. But the darker, less starchy vegetables are what we're looking for. And, of course, the high-quality grains like brown rice, quinoa, amaranth, and so forth.
Yes. So in essence, when you go into the grocery store and you see the outer perimeter, you see a lot of the real food, and then in the middle, you got all those box foods, and those are all the money makers, but those are the ones that are probably causing a lot of the Candida flare-ups with all the preservatives and sugars and chemicals.
Yeah, all that fake food, actually, as you say. It's true.
Yeah. What about children? I'm a parent, and I want to give my children a good head start. What are some of the things that you've encountered that help with families who want to raise up stronger and healthier children? What have you noticed there that could be potentially beneficial?
Number one, minimize the consumption of dairy.
Okay.
minimize consumption of fruits, focus on, again, high quality protein in the proper doses for young folks. Stay
Hmm.
away from anything that's sugared because that's going to make their ability to focus and keep blood sugars balanced really difficult. You know, children, many children are born with candidiasis. They're born with blood sugar issues immediately from this candida overgrowth, and that's what I've been finding in the thousands of people I've worked with over the years, that this has been going on since very early years, single-digit years, and from birth.
That's
The other
it.
thing, yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing I recommend, Matt, is start using a probiotic very early on. There are children's probiotics. You can even use some of the low to moderate potency adult probiotics in the proper doses are just fine for children. Take them on a regular basis. That'll help keep the immune system, the gut, and blood sugars in good control and help improve digestion as well.
Okay. And let's just say chronic infections. That's another issue that I run into a lot, and I know you do too, where the overuse of antibiotics is something that may have already occurred when people come to you. Like for me, I was on antibiotics for over 2 years when I had Lyme's and other issues, and so I've been constantly working on my gut. What do you recommend for somebody that's been abused by antibiotics?
Well, I hate to bring up that C word again, but that candida is going to be the problem.
Yep.
Long-term, any use of antibiotics, especially as children, and that's a big issue when the young folks get antibiotics for ear infections or inappropriately or excessive use of antibiotics, you can count on having overgrowth of candida. So the number one thing, start on probiotics immediately. If you must use it, you need them. So you need to use concurrent use of a good high-potency probiotic and then stay on it continuously. Also, even for younger folks who can handle it from age like 10 and up and through adulthood, a good digestive enzyme is imperative. Imperative to get a good digestive enzyme with each of your regular meals. Plus, there are some great gut-building and restoring supplements like glutamine and colostrum, and those are things I sometimes use as well.
Okay. So this is kind of like a gut health episode we're creating here, which I think is really important.
Well,
And
you cure the gut, you cure your body. That's where it's at.
yeah, I feel the same on the same wavelength as you on that situation. So what about the incurables? I don't want to get you in any situations where you say anything you don't want to, but what do you say to somebody that's had like lupus or some kind of autoimmune issue and the doctor says we can't do anything for you other than treat it for the rest of your life, but you'll never get rid of it?
I'm going to step on that one very carefully and say that I don't use the word cure, but I will tell you that there are things you can do to balance your immune system, and you don't have to have lifelong symptoms. Let's just call it that.
I like that because you talk about the symptoms. That's what people care about. Call it whatever you want. It's symptoms. It's a group of symptoms that you want to get rid of.
I mean,
So
yeah, we have to face it. We're living in a toxic world. We're all doing the best we can. The best thing we can do right now is to support all the organs that help clear those toxins from our body. You need to love your liver, right? You need to love your kidneys and your adrenal glands. You need to love your lymph system, one of the most under attention paid to organ systems. That's a big issue with the lymph system and the spleen. We need to keep that moving correctly. And most people have clogged lymph systems. And the gut, of course, we need to keep that cleansed and make sure it's working well, and you're having regular bowel movements and so forth. This is imperative. If we're going to keep ourselves clear in this world, you've got to keep those organ systems healthy. And you can do that through proper diet choices and, of course, using the proper supplements for the proper period of time to restore the vitality of those organ systems.
Yes. Now, do you agree with a similar philosophy as many of the natural path doctors that where you start with the colon and you clean that and then you move to the liver and then the kidneys? What is your strategy for starting fresh?
Generally the same, but it depends on the individual. Some people, depends on what I intuit that they need. Sometimes it's much more important for me to get that candida load and that heavy metal load down now, along with getting the liver open first before, if I feel the gut is functional enough, I may start right with the liver and just go right there first. Depends on the situation.
Okay. So it's very individual. That's good.
Yes.
What else would you like to talk about right now? Anything that you've been fascinated by recently that's come up in your practice that is something that's you think should get out there?
Well, yeah, there's two. I have a number of pet areas, but one of the ones that I really get into is working with the ultra-sensitive people of the planet, Matt. There are people out there that I have found over the years, thousands of people that I've worked with, that are not wired the same as everyone else. I want to be clear, that doesn't make these individuals superior or better, but it certainly does make them different. And the way we handle ourselves as ultra-sensitives, and I'm a self-proclaimed what I call ultra-sensitive individual, i.e. sensitive not just to certain foods and perfumes and so forth, which I am, but sensitive to the energies of everything and everybody. And those energies affect me in a very profound way. And I know those who listen to this are going to go, hey, you're talking about me. So when they read the back cover of my book called You Are Sensitive, they go, hey, you wrote the book about me. And that's what I hear time after time after time. So there is a group of individuals out there that is now awakening that are super sensitive, empathic receivers of energy of all sorts, including the negative energies of people, which is a biggie, and the energies of electronics, our phones, our computers, the high power lines, you name it, the EMFs out there. These individuals need very special care and handling in every aspect of life.
Yes, I've run into many of those individuals, and they could take, you know, for instance, a product A, just a magnesium, for most people is fantastic, but for some sensitive people, that could make them really, you know, really sick. So I've seen that time and time again. And is that a lot? What is the underlying issue there? Is it just because they just are that sensitive and they're so high tuned in to everything? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's a 2-hour lecture, but let's summarize it in a couple sentences. So at the end of the day, Matt, what's going on is these individuals have a special mission on this planet.
Okay.
And that is to help bring some change about. And a lot of these folks are literally in the sensitive closet, if you will, and they are just now awakening, realizing there are other people like them on the planet. In my day and age, when I knew I was different, I didn't know what that meant, but these days, of course, I do. There was nowhere to turn back then. There was nobody talking about it, nobody writing about it. And if you went to tell somebody about it, they think you're a cuckoo and send you to a shrink or lock you up or fire you.
Yeah.
These days, there are people who are now going, yeah, that's me. You wrote the book about me. I'm sensitive. I can't come out of the house. I have a hard time working a 9-to-5 job. I can't be around electronics. I can't take supplements, or I can't take these kinds of supplements. And these people are super gifted, super talented, are able to feel the energies of individuals all across the planet and beyond. They often are healers, intuitives, artists, and the list goes on and on. But these individuals are, I would tell you that there's a huge population. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 50 to 70% of the entire world's population are ultra-sensitive, the bulk of which are now just starting to realize who they are. And it's happening right now as we speak.
Yeah. And does that may even be addressed as an ascension topic, where maybe, do you think we're ascending? Do you think we're becoming more than just, you know, meat sacks, you know, with consciousness? Do you think that we're actually ascending to a higher plane? Or what are your thoughts on where we're heading in this world? Are we going backwards or forwards?
We're absolutely going forwards. We're absolutely going forwards. No question about that. I'm sure there are moments when we all go, are we really going anywhere? But my feeling is that we are definitely making headway. As I say, there is a grand awakening occurring on this planet right now. And for those of you who are listening, you know what I'm talking about. You know who you are. It doesn't mean we're here to do secretive work. We're just here to help. We're not trying to undermine anything. We're trying to assist others in their awakening and help make the transition or the ascension more comfortable and lead the way. And that's really how I look at this whole thing.
Yeah. I like your perspective, and I tend to agree with you. I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist. Sometimes it's hard to tell. You know, there's a lot of chemicalization happening. A lot of the negativity is coming up, but also a lot of the positive is also coming to the surface. So what would you like to add before we close out the show, Dr. Faithe?
Well, I just want to say that if you need some assistance, if you're listening and need some help, there are people out there that understand what is going on here. If you don't have to come to me, but there are individuals like myself who are out there who understand your situation, who've been there, did that, and know how to manage the symptoms that you may be experiencing. Whether or not you want to call yourself an ultra-sensitive, that's just semantics. If you're not feeling right and you can't get help in the traditional system, there are other alternative alternatives available to you, and it starts with a proper diet, good quality thinking, and clearing negative energies. You'll start to feel better.
Yes. Well, I find that you would be an excellent guide in this area because you have the traditional, medical understanding, you have the natural understanding, and you have the intuitive understanding. So you're definitely right in the pocket for a lot of the people that you're speaking to, the 50 to 70% of these people that are looking for someone just like you. So do you want to give out your website, and we can close up then?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. You can reach me at www.healingwizards, that's plural, healingwizards.com, and that'll bring you to the World Wellness Center website. And if you need to contact me or have any questions, reach out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Emil Faithe. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I'll look forward to chatting with you in the near future.
My pleasure. Thank you, Matt, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.